Welcome to a bonus episode of Sports and Songs podcast. Today is March 21st, 2023. Andy and I will be joined with co-head coaches from the Watertown-Mayer Wrestling program, Bill McDonald and Kurt Becker. Hello, gentlemen.
Hello. How are you? Good to see you.
Good. We're doing good. So, Andy, what we're doing here, we're looking forward to a postseason recap, and we've been following the Watertown-Mayer Royals most of the season, and in particular the Section 2 AA wrestling program as a whole, because many think, and I'm one of those, it could be the most competitive section in the state of Minnesota for high school wrestling. It is good. Watertown-Mayer won the section 2 years ago. New Prague won it this last year that just ended here last month. New Prague went on to the state. Watertown-Mayer was at home and was only able to send the individuals, but because they had such a season, they finished 23-3 on the year this year. Watertown-Mayer did. We're going to interview the two head coaches here, the co-head coaches, and go over the year in review and cover some of the bases here and answer some of the questions that we've had. As the season's been going on, as the season's been happening. We cover a lot of sports here in Western Carver County, and this is one of the good ones. So, number one, glad to have you on the show.
Thanks for being here.
Yeah. Perfect. So what we'd like to do, and Andy, what we're going to do is have you also feel free to jump in with questions, comments. I've got really a list of 5 or 6 questions. It's all I've really got. We're just going to go kind of in chronological order. Let's start off, gentlemen, with the regular season as a team perspective. I know you guys came in highly ranked in the conference and also in the section, and had a lot of studs coming back. But how did the regular season go for you guys this year?
Yeah, it was a great season. We weren't sure. We knew we'd have a good team coming back. We graduated 6 really good seniors the year before, and so just a matter of waiting for guys to see what they had to step up and to fill those other weights. And the regular season, I think we finished with 21-2 in the regular season, and won the conference, which we didn't last year. We didn't win the conference even though we placed 4th in state. So we had 3 individual tournament championships and 2 second place finishes. Both of those times were shortly or just right behind Jackson County Central, who's the best team in Class A. So it was really a great individual season for us this year.
Bill? It was solid. I mean, our numbers were not huge, but we have some really good, hardworking kids right now on our team, and you couldn't have asked for more. There was never any dissension amongst the work ethic, and those guys put their time in, and we were competitive this year. And a lot of teams and a lot of coaches and a lot of people really felt like we weren't going to be, because we graduated so many on the top that we weren't going to be competitive to try to fill those weight classes. But in fact, the opposite ended up being true. Kids kind of grew, and the guys stepped in and filled in and were just tougher than nails for us.
Now, of course, with the team competition, we're tracking wins and losses, points, things like that. But as far as some of the metrics that you guys use, Bill in particular, I think you do a pretty good in-depth statistics with takedowns, points, pins for, pins against, those types of things. Did you see a better year this year with some of the stats?
Yeah, that's a good thing to point out. You kind of look at every team differently, but when you start comparing, year to year to year, and you start saying, okay, like in 2017, we were only getting 49% of all the takedowns. In this past year, we were getting 65% of every takedown. And our winning ratio, a couple of years ago was like 56%. We won 56% of all the matches. This past year, we got 68% of all the individual matches at tournaments, dual meets, whatever. And pinning ratio was a big one too. I think we got 72% of all the pins this year. So that really helps your team scores a lot. And then in terms of like the overall numbers, I like to track how many kids on your team had a winning record, for example. And like this past team this year, we had 14 weight classes. All the starters had winning records. And that's the first time that's happened for me. So
wow.
I mean, you look at it and it's like, that's a solid team when you put somebody together. And it's like in the past, we've only had one person ever get 40 wins in a season. And this year we had 3 guys do it. And then we had 5 more guys get 35 wins. So we had 8 guys with 35 wins or more. And that's a real solid lineup. Mm-hmm. And that kept us with really good teams. The hard part was with New Prague, they didn't have just some really good guys. They had several really good hammers that they're going to get big points on you. And there's not much you can do about it. and it's hard to answer that every single time. And that we struggle with New Prague that time.
Yeah, you mentioned the 40 wins and the 30, which is more and more common nowadays. Do you do a statistical rate also on the 20s, even the 20-win individuals? How many of those on the squad?
We had 13 of our 14 starters had over 20 wins, and the
20+ wins. Okay,
and the 14th starter would have, but he was injured. He would have easily probably had 30 wins had he been healthy the whole season.
Boy, no, that's tough to do, and that shows your guys is the all-around talent at all the levels. It's not like you're very, very strong at some weights and then very weak at some other weights. It's very balanced is what I'm getting at, I guess. Very balanced.
That really makes a big difference in a dual meet, especially your close dual meets. If you can have a kid who's pretty solid out there, even if he's 25 and 15, for example, that kid's pretty good. It's going to be hard for somebody to pin them. They're just good.
Correct.
They might give it a decision in a dual meet, but that's a lot different than getting pinned every time.
It is. So the conference then came to a close, and then you're heading into the sections. What was that looking like for this year? Now, the sectionals for the team was hosted at New Prague, and you get through those first rounds. I don't want to say they're meaningless, but you pretty much know what's going to happen that Thursday night, and then once you get into the Saturday competition, I was there, and the stadium was packed. I mean, it is packed, especially for this Section 2 AA. There's people lined up at the railing on the upper deck. This is in New Prague, and some of these last couple of years, they're filling up. I mean, the gymnasium is filling up. How do the kids like that wrestling on the big stage there for the team? And is that something that's ever going to get moved? Is it ever thinking of relocating to a bigger arena, a bigger school to house this many people for the fans? There was a big line out the door when I came in of just folks trying to get tickets to get into this event. Very, very successful event.
Yeah, it's something that we could talk about. We've never really talked about it as a section moving it. I think it's always been something teams are looking forward to, is getting their chance to host. And it really creates a good atmosphere. So we'd want to make sure, that, because sometimes when you move to a bigger venue, you lose the atmosphere. It's not, people are more spread out. And so part of that adds to the atmosphere, and the kids really enjoy it. And we preach to the kids, it's not just about winning and losing. Take in the moment, look around, look at the fans. We visualize before we wrestle some of these matches to just, see the fans, feel the energy, so that when they get there, they're not, kind of in shock and in awe of all the people cheering. And so it really creates for a good atmosphere. And it's part of the memory that these kids get too, is just that emotion, that feeling, the fans there. And, it's part of the experience that you want kids to be taking in and enjoying.
I think one of my favorite things when you have an atmosphere like that, it's just the adrenaline that lasts for 2 hours. As soon as you're warming up, you're just full of adrenaline, and it stays that way for 2 straight hours or better. And I think that kids are never going to have that happen again. And you can tell them there's no drug that's ever going to make you feel this good. It's this, and love it.
It's unreal. Even with 2 years ago when Watertown hosted a very same atmosphere, lots of people come to these events to watch. And the Final Four this year, it was number 1 ranked in the section. Now this is New Prague. Number 2 was Watertown-Mayer. Number 3 was Scott West. Scott West is a co-op between Jordan and Belle Plaine. And then number 4 was St. Peter. St. Peter's always seems to be in the running, but when you get the big 3 horses up there, it's tough for them their highlight of their night is a semifinal round, because they know they're not going to get past that. But it's tough when you have these teams. Now, New Prague was ranked 2nd in the state for Class AA. Right. Watertown and Scott West, I think Watertown was 5th at the time, and Scott West was 6th. So we had 3 teams in the Final Four that were ranked in the top 6 in the state of Minnesota. So those semifinal matches are huge. New Prague went on to beat St. Peter. Watertown beat Scott West, and that was the 2nd time in a row you beat them in the semifinals. Yep. That's huge, and those matches are big in and of itself. But boy, when the champions get together there, you guys beat Scott West. It was New Prague versus Watertown-Mayer. They slide that center mat over, drop the light, hit the lights, put the spotlight on. How do the kids like that? With the full house, when the spotlight's directly on you in a highly anticipated match.
Yeah, it creates even a better atmosphere for the kids to go out and wrestle. It's kind of hard to see sometimes as coaches, but it's they enjoy it. It's it just amps it up even that much more, like the adrenaline and the excitement of it. So it's important that they learn to to be prepared for that, so that they're able not. You don't want them to get too high or too low, and just to keep that even keel. But it definitely adds to it, and it makes it more enjoyable and fun, when you get that kind of atmosphere.
I just think it's one of the best things for the sport of wrestling. When you think big picture, you want to have close matches that are tight like that. I mean, it's just not a fun section if you go and you watch Simile beat somebody, 60-0 in the finals of their section tournament. That's really not much of a tournament. It's not good for the sport.
And that's one of those sections. Similarly, you bring up a good point where there's no one else ranked in their section at all except for one. So they just cakewalk their way through and go to state. Whereas section 2 AA, this one, you're fighting and clawing the whole way to get there, and only one team goes. There's no backup. There's no wrestle back. So you're not wrestling for 3rd or 5th place. There's no consolation bracket. It's an elimination tournament, which I love personally. Now, 2 years ago, your team went up and beat New Prague. And now this last month, New Prague came back and won the section 37-32, or was it 37-33, over Watertown, and left you guys then packing your bags and going home, and New Prague advancing to the state at the Xcel Energy Center. What was that feeling like after winning it the previous year, getting to the final again, and then this time coming up short, although you probably weren't too surprised at the same time with New Prague's depth this year?
Yeah, we knew. I mean, the year before, it was our first time getting through to state. So that's a tough barrier to break. It's tough to get the kids to believe they can do it and to find a way to do it. And then this year, I think, even though New Prague was the favorite, our kids believed because they had done it last year. New Prague was ranked higher than us last year when we upset them. So that was kind of a big deal. So now, I think probably even going into that finals, I would say New Prague was equally, if not more, worried than we were because it had happened to them last year. So they hadn't broken through. So to get that to happen, and our kids believed, and they fought their tails off. And, we just needed one break, and we fortunately didn't get it. And otherwise it could have been the other way around again. So
starts with a flip of the coin.
Flip of the coin.
Flip of the coin. Yes, the ever important flip of the coin that gets done before the match. And you guys knew then going in that it would have been important to get that win. And when the Trojans won it, how does it leave you guys then as far as more of a reactionary versus on the defense versus offense as far as putting your guys out there at each weight?
Well, you go ahead if you want, but I'm just saying it's like you plan for both scenarios as a coach, and if you win the flip of the coin, great. If you don't, you still got to go out there and do what you got to do. And we had opportunities to win that match without the flip of the coin. Yep. We just didn't get some things that we needed to get done. We didn't pick up enough bonus points in the bottom, and that's just the way it was. I mean, our kids, they fought off their back this year against hammers, against state champions, and they give up pins. You couldn't ask for any better effort out of people than that. And we just didn't get things we needed to get. And because of that, we just didn't win the dual meet. Last year we did. Nobody gave Jackson Drayers a chance last year against Novak, and beat him. And that's it. So, I mean, you have to have good things happen. And we tell our kids in dual meets, like, there's going to be things that happen that are, unexpected. Something's going to be good. Something's going to be bad. And you just got to wrestle through it all and just keep going. And that's what we do. But this year we knew it was going to be tight, and the kids felt like nobody gave them a chance. So it was kind of all season long. They knew that other teams never gave them a chance and stuff. So it was good motivation all year, knowing they could do it.
Little bit of a chip on the shoulder, which helped out in that situation with not much respect during the year that it came out, and it brought them to a 23-3 dual meet record this season, which was very, very good. Wow. And 2 of the losses were to New Prague.
Yeah, our 3 losses were to the team that finished second, New Prague twice, and then to Becker, who finished third.
Becker. So those are the 3 losses. Interesting.
Yep, right.
Well, they did a great job this year. They really did.
Yeah, they and New Prague they went on to the state, won the first 2 rounds fairly handily, got into the finals and did not win. They came within, I think, 20 points to Simley, but that was pretty much to be expected as well. But good representation once again from the Section 2 AA. So then the state team ends, and then we got the individuals. Now, tell us a little more about the individuals that Watertown-Mayer sent off to state.
We were pretty lucky this year. We sent 6 kids, and that's the most we've sent in our history. And that was the most of any team in Section 2. New Prague actually sent 5. And I think Scott West sent 5 also. So we were real happy with our performance at the section level. there's always ups and downs, of course. We know that. And going into the state tournament, we felt like we had real good chances of placing a few kids, and we did. We had 3 place winners, which was awesome. And at the same time, it's kind of bittersweet. You hope you have more on the podium, and it's a conflict as a coach. You're happy for the successes you had, and you feel bad about the ones that didn't, get up on the podium. But I'm not going to complain about anybody's efforts, And I look at a kid like Jonah Hamburger. He's been down there 3 times, and he had a tough first round draw, and he lost that first match, and we knew it was going to be tough. His kid lost, and he was out. So it's like, it is what it is. But we can't complain at all. We felt like our kids performed at a high level.
Every one of them, all 6 of them wrestled really well.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
So.
It wasn't like everybody went down there and laid an egg. They were really competitive.
Yeah, and once again, with this section, it comes back into the talent once again at the section level. So just if you're in Section 2 AA, if the team doesn't get it, you still got to work your way through the individual portion to get to the state. And the top 2 advance, and there's 8 sections in the state. So 16 wrestlers from each weight advance to state. And when they're talking about the podium, that's the top 6. The top 6 finishers will be on the podium. And that's, I think, everyone's goal is to get to that level. But there is 16 that go. So the ones that fall out does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that that they're not up there for any, that they're not good enough. They're certainly talented to get to that level, but the luck of the draw, once again, ends up there. So you take 6, you advance, and how many place winners again on the podium for you guys?
We had 3. So our 6-pounder Joel Friederichs placed 4th, and he lost in overtime, final overtime in the semifinals.
Okay.
From Simley, who lost in the final overtime to Eller again in the finals. So, he's basically equal to those.
Lawson, Eller, New Prague. Okay.
Yep. And then Titan Fredericks was our first undefeated state champion since this guy right here next to us, which was when?
Long time ago. 84. But that's a long time ago, man. And it's hard to do nowadays, man. Yep. Really hard to do.
Yeah, it was easy.
It was way easier then. Way easier.
And who was the other? And who was the other one then? The third?
Then Bryce Burkett placed second. He lost 1-0.
Burkett, yep.
Yeah, 1-0 to the 7th ranked wrestler in the nation.
Yeah.
And I think had he been given more of a chance to make Glazier wrestle, he could have possibly won that match. So,
and so back to Titan. He did finish Titan Fredericks. This is 45-0, and he is a twin. Him and both twins are on the team.
Yep.
And their dad is TJ Fredericks.
That's correct. Yep.
And so Titan goes 45-0, but his brother, what was his record?
Oh, geez. He was what? 43 and 6.
Something like that, I think. Yeah.
So
and 4 of his
both are very tough. I know Titan's getting all the press here, but going undefeated, very hard to do 45-0, especially like you said, Bill, in this time and day and age. So we looked it up in the books, Bill. It was 39 years ago.
Long time ago.
When you went undefeated for Watertown-Mayer, the last person, actually, you guys are the only 2 ever to do it, to go undefeated. And very hard to do. And once again, congrats to that. And what did you say what were your thoughts and comments to Titan when he finished that?
Oh, yeah. When he came off the mat and I walked over and talked to him, and he couldn't hardly talk. And I just said, "Welcome to the club." And he was pretty damn happy. I got to stop. Sorry about that. But he knew exactly what I meant.
Yeah, it is. It's awesome. Yeah, it's a rare thing. And once again, congratulations to him and to your background as well. But that's good. That's fun stuff. And what year are those? Are the twins?
Freshmen.
That's the nicest part about it when you say it like that. They're freshmen right now.
So we got them for 3 more.
Freshmen. So you got guys with 40 plus wins moving on to a sophomore season coming up.
Yep.
Now, my next
sophomore. So
Burkett's a sophomore, so we get him all for.
Burkett will be good as well. Yes.
Right. The goal, and that's how I felt. I felt like coming into that tournament, all 3 of those kids could have won a state title if things went perfect. Mm-hmm. And so you feel conflicted when you leave that you only got 1 out of 3 to win it. But I felt like all 3 could have. And a person should be happier some days, but I was frustrated at the same time because I thought, boy, it would have been nice to get both those other kids up on top.
Yeah, it is. It's fun. Now, with wrestling, and I'm guessing this is the way it is. I'm just going to put myself in your spot here. For year 2, the season ends, right? The season ends, and right away you're probably looking into the next year. How are you going to do? How is Scott West going to do? How is St. Peter going to be? How good is New Prague going to be next year? How do you guys think for the next year's sectional, this Final Four now, once again, always going to be tough? What teams are taking the biggest hits from graduating seniors, and who's taking the least of the brunt?
Yeah, I'm not going to lie. The Sunday after we lost to New Prague, I sent Bill and a couple of assistants our projected lineup for next year. So yeah,
you look
already. It's already on.
Right.
It's already looking at it. But yeah, I would say the favorite coming back is Scott West. They graduate very little, and
the biggest hit was probably New Prague.
Yep, with their
they
horses.
took the biggest hit with their ponies on top.
We're graduating, 6 starters as well, and it's so. But St. Peter's fairly young, so I look for this kind of these 4 teams, if we're all in the same section next year, to be right there fighting for it again. And I think Scott West has got to be the favorite. Yeah, rightfully so. They've got a very good team as well. So.
And so Watertown's not graduating as far as not getting impacted that much. Scott West isn't. But look at the Trojans here. Now, I've got this pulled up. This is New Prague Trojans' current win-loss record from an individual perspective. And here's what I did. I highlighted the seniors. Now, like you said, look at who they're losing. They're losing big dogs, big horses here.
Mm-hmm.
Five guys, seniors with more than 20, 30, 40 wins, a couple state champs in the mix. They're a big 3, 3 or 4 state champs, aren't they?
Right.
3. So they're going to take the biggest hit. Now, we know that they're deep because they got 11th graders coming up. They got young guys coming up as well. They're going to be tough. But the parity for next year could be very close. Scott West isn't losing much. They're going to be tough. Watertown-Mayer is going to be tough. New Prague will be back down to a little more normal, back down to earth, I think, next year. And then you get St. Peter coming back. What are your thoughts on the 4 of those? I know you briefly mentioned that already, but as far as how's St. Peter going to be next year?
Yep, they're going to be good. I think they're getting hungry. It's like you had mentioned, they've been that kind of distance 4th place team the last couple of years. And we were there not that long ago where we were, our goal was to get to the Final Four, but not sure if we could quite compete when we got all the way to the finals, or if we could get there with those other top 2 or 3 teams. And St. Peter's hungry. They're working hard as a program, and they got some good skilled wrestlers. And so they're looking to take that next step, and that's good for wrestling if they can learn to do that. And sometimes it just has to happen with experience and guys coming back and just happen. And so I think it's going to be good depth.
Rob is tough. What if Rob plays 4th this year in the state tournament?
They got some.
If he's the kind of leader I think he is in the room, you're going to see other kids follow him, and they're going to be solid because of that.
Yeah, it makes for a fun off season as far as prepping and checking out who's all going to be in the mix. So that's New Prague there. We're talking Section 2AA, once again, and this is good. This is good stuff. Thanks again for you guys coming on. Now let's get into a little bit more of. Andy sent me this. Now I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Here's from the state of Wyoming. Check this out. The state of Wyoming. Andy, talk to this with the gentleman.
Yeah, the gal here, she won her weight class, but not in the girls division. She wrestled with the boys and took state champ there for her. Any gals on the Watertown team or gals wanting to be on the Watertown team?
We don't have any in the high school right now. We had a gal that was out as a 7th and 8th grader, and then as a 9th grader, she broke her ankle playing football, and so she couldn't wrestle last as a 9th grader. And then last year, sophomore year, she decided not to play and just was focusing on some other sports as well. But she was tough. We got the Meads. Caleb Mead was one of our state entrants as an 8th grader, and Isaiah Mead's a tough wrestler too. That's a year older. They have 2 younger sisters that have wrestled in our youth program, and one of them's a 6th grader this year. So she's going to need to decide if she wants to. She's also a really good gymnast, so if she's going to come out for wrestling next year, or if she's going to be a gymnast. So we could have a couple girls coming up here in the future, and it's kind of one of those things where I think you need a couple before you're going to get more, somebody to encourage them. So some girls coming through the youth would probably interest some other girls. Oh, I'm going to give this a try too. Right. So right now we don't have any on the team at the high school though.
Yeah, I know, Andy, we talked on other shows that
like I said before too.
Oh yes.
But the girls hockey, that got big. in the towns that have good boys hockey teams. So you guys having a good successful team here is going to make the girls want to try out for it too, I would assume.
I know Bemidji.
And siblings help.
Bemidji's got a big team of girls, a lot of girls going out, and I think it's going to take the various communities where the hot spots are to really grow that sport. Now, the Minnesota State High School League did complete its second annual girls individual state wrestling tournament here in Minnesota. Now, other states have done this for a while. We're kind of in the middle of the pack here, but they've had 2 straight years of having a full individual for girls only for the sport. Now, this gal here in Wyoming, once again, Andy, I can't stress the importance for the listeners out there. This girl was entered into the boys bracket, won her section, went to the state in the boys bracket and won it, beat everybody, state champ. So very hard to do. Speaking of things hard to do, it's got to be that. But I think for the girls out there, it's probably one of 2 things, gentlemen. One might be you come from a big wrestling family. You come from a big wrestling boys family. You're in it. You're around it. You're surrounded by it. Those are going to be the ones who are going to be talented just because of their upbringing. Yep, other than that, the other ones are going to be probably from the youth program. Ones who get started early, get started young, can come up and make their way up. And Minnesota could have a pretty good girls group here as far as talent here in the state of Minnesota. But out in this area, there isn't much in this section or this pocket of the state that I don't see much on the girls' side. Other areas of the state, it's very popular. But
I know Pine Island had a fair bunch of girls on their team at a tournament. I was talking with one of their volunteer coaches, and I know Hutchinson had a few girls out this year. Mm-hmm. So we've gone some places where we have seen some, and probably more than in the past ever, actually.
Even the state tournament.
How do you talk to the boys about that when they have to wrestle a girl? They had issues.
They're so used to it.
They just don't even.
Yeah, it really isn't an issue anymore.
Right.
It seems like they've been wrestling girls on and off in tournaments or duels since they were little kids now. Okay. So for them, it's not a big deal anymore. Even 5 or 6 years ago, it was kind of a big deal to have to wrestle a girl, and it's really, I think that mindset has changed quite a bit, which is good. So now when they have to wrestle a girl, they know they might be very well be wrestling against a girl that's wrestled longer than they have, and they're going to be in for a heck of a battle. So, if he wins, it's not an embarrassment like that stigma that it used to be, which is good because it shouldn't be. These girls are wrestlers and they're working just as hard as our boys are. And, if they're good enough to beat them, then tip your hat to them.
And many times you also notice like the girls, they'll develop sooner than the boys do physically. So in your 5th grade and your 6th grade, sometimes you'll see a few girls when you go to those tournaments, NYWA or whatever, that they are hammering the kids and they're very talented. Mm-hmm. And as long as their skill sets keep growing with them, they're going to be competitive, especially at the lighter weight classes like 106, well, next year 107 or whatever. Yeah. But Minnesota, we've had good girls here too, like Allie Bernard. She had to wrestle my cousin from St. James when she was young, and she was solid all the way through. She ended up making the Olympic team for the women, and that was quite a few years ago.
Yeah, didn't she qualify as an individual for the Minnesota State Tournament with the boys?
There was another one that did too, and so we've had girls in the state tournament individually, but nobody's ever won the tournament.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember I was down there on the on that Thursday for state this year down at the Excel for the teams, and Simley's got that 106 or 112 girl on the boys team, and a tough slot, a tough weight because they're so tough up and down the weights. She's holding her own. I do believe that she may have been the first person here in the state of Minnesota to earn points on the boys team for wrestling for Simley, and then individually in the girls program to win that itself. I don't know if she won the weight, the bracket, or where she ended up, but
I'm not sure where she placed, but yeah,
she placed in both the boys on the team and also girls from an individual standpoint. Maybe the first ever to earn points on both sides in one weekend tournament on both ends of the scale there.
I think that's correct.
Yep.
Very interesting. Very interesting.
And she comes from a wrestling background too.
Oh, yes. Now, my last question for the gentleman here is, and I was talking about this with Andy before the show, is as far as the athletes nowadays are so focused or almost taught or instructed by parents and whatnot to focus on one sport. I know Watertown's very good at splitting it up, making sure the kids play the basketball, the baseball, the football, keep them a well-rounded athlete, a well-rounded individual, and a well-conditioned person by playing those different sports. What's your both take on that?
Well, it's interesting you asked that too, because we had a parent come up and ask us our opinion on that at a tournament, a youth tournament, and both of us were like, just no, go play. Your kid's a kid. You know, you got to go out and get on the football team and have some fun. Go run some cross country. I mean, we have kids in the golf team. A lot of our kids are 2 and 3 sport athletes. We have, but they also put their time in too. You know, Joel and Titan both are on the golf team. You know, Ian is now playing baseball this year. So we have kids doing things. We just feel like that's important for friendships and for growth as a person and for balance of the muscular system and so on.
And we're not that big of a school, you know.
Right.
We need our kids playing multiple sports. Otherwise, we're not going to have successful sports all the way across. You know, I mean, our football team was in the state semifinals this year because of you know, our wrestlers and our basketball players that play multiple sports. You know, we had successful teams the last couple of years because we have multi-sport athletes that help us out. So, you know, we encourage our kids to play multiple sports. One, it's an enjoyment, and it's, you know, it's a short time in your life that you're never going to get back, that you don't want to just focus on one thing the whole time. It's like working right away. You know, you got your whole life to work. Let's, you know, enjoy the time now. So,
and we take great pride, you know, when we see our wrestlers on the football field and they're dominating, we take a lot of pride in that. We make sure we tell people the reason we're good is because of those guys. You know, I remember last year watching Burmeister and Jackson and those kids and Cogden. I mean, hey, watch the football field. There's a reason we're good. Stein, yeah. I mean, just that's it.
Yeah, it's fun stuff. Andy, any other questions on your side, Andy?
I just got one. I noticed I've been watching a lot of the Big 12 and the Big 10 college wrestling in the NCAA. They got, now with the entrances for these guys, they got the little smokes and light screens and that. Is that in the budget for you guys this year to have that down there? Entrance music for the guys when they come in, smoke screens, light shows.
You know, if Sports and Songs podcast
is in budget, maybe
make some good revenue and wants to donate to Watertown-Mayer
pretty much.
Yeah. It is kind of fun. I know it doesn't happen too often, but it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, and our kids are always asking us, you know, can we get walkout songs? And we've kind of ignored them for a couple of years, and this year they kind of put something together. But you know, we've kind of latched on to, you know, how do we want to be seen as a team when we come in to compete, and when we walk in the gymnasium, come off the bus, and team see us. How do they want to, you know, how do we want to be noticed? What do we want?
First impression, yes.
Yeah, and so we decided we're more of a ragtag bunch. We don't wear the same clothes. We don't have the same uniforms. We don't comb our hair. We want to come off the bus just looking like we're just scruffy, awful people. You know,
seems to be working.
Seems to be working. We're going to go with that, I think. We're not coached.
But we're guys that you'd want to come out of a bar fight with.
That's what I'm saying. That's what we breed.
Awesome. I don't got any questions, any additional questions myself, and unless Andy, if you don't, we could wrap it up. But go ahead, Andy.
I just got one last thing. First of all, Dan's a Scott West guy. That's where he went to school. My kids went through Watertown-Mayer, so beating Scott West the last 2 years. Thank you. You've given me bragging rights here on the show for high school wrestling, so I appreciate that. Thank you.
You know,
awesome. Yeah, it's a fun group. You know, we know a lot of folks from New Prague area. We know a lot from the Scott West, Jordan Bell Plain area, and a lot of connections here in Watertown. So it makes it fun. We'll have to get some more folks included in the St. Peter group here for the Final Four. But it's fun with a lot of names, a lot of name recognition,
there's a lot of respect amongst all these programs too, the coaches and the wrestlers. So it's, you know, it's a great rivalry, but it's not a hatred. You know, we're checking in our wrestlers and we're making comments and talking to each other, you know, and before and after. And so I think it makes our job more enjoyable too when you respect the coaches you're competing against, and you know, and it makes a funner atmosphere. And
yeah, I like seating meetings when I get to see the other coaches. It's a lot of fun because then you know, they know your kid's record sometimes better than you know it. And that's
my last question. I just thought of something here now. As teams realign and move up to different class levels and things, is there anything going to come into play here for Section 2 AA? There's some talk of New Prague moving up to Class 3A. And if so, is that something that happens that takes 2 or 3 years before that takes effect, or they go to effect right away? And if so, if we lose one in our section, is someone else going to come back over? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the rumor has it New Prague, as of right now, is very likely to be a 3A team next year. They're one of the bigger schools, so They could be bumped down if enough teams opt up because they keep the top AAA at only 64 teams.
I see.
But right now it looks like very possible that they could go to AAA, which will change our section a lot. I do know for a fact that Howard Lake is going up to AA. So they would be a logical fit of proximity to our section. If New Prague goes up, that's now the third place team from Class A coming into our.
And they're no slouch. Yeah.
No,
for the listeners out there, they just got done winning third place in the Class A tournament.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. So we don't know for sure. That's within the next 2 weeks. Usually it comes out around spring break time, which for us is next week. So in the next week or two, we should know who our section is, and that becomes immediate next season. Yep.
Fun stuff, exciting. I always look forward to this time of the year with the sectionals and the team. I try to make it down and watch those events even at the XL, but it's fun with a group like this where it's very competitive, very even, a lot of parity.
Yep.
A lot of big names.
What do we have state champions? I think our section had 6 state champions out of the 14. Is that right?
I think there probably was.
That sounds right. Yes.
I know there was 19 of the state entrants from this section alone that was finished on the podium. I think it was 19 out of this section alone.
Yeah, so even our teams that are not real competitive team wise have 3 or 4 studs.
Yes,
that has multiple.
They got 4 hammers.
Yep. So that makes the section individual really tough. So as tough as the team is, sometimes the section individual is even more tough.
I saw that when you scored the state tournament AA as an individual tournament, not as a team dual meet tournament, but I think Mount Westonka placed 4th in that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think we placed 6th or 7th? And New Prague placed 3rd, I believe, or 2nd.
That's a good stat right there, Bill. That's a good one because if the depth on some of these teams, once again, it may not be good as a team to make it against the big dogs, but individually they got a lot of talent on a couple of these weights.
And that's exactly how it is, because I just know that after the team duels were done, I'm sure New Prague was scrambling, wondering, boy, how many kids can we get in the state tournament? Well, they figured their hammers for sure, and that was about it. And but next year when they're returning kids, one of the seniors they're losing, he had listed there was Cole Herman. Okay, that's the kind of graduate that's going to hurt them more than sometimes losing a stud, because they don't get that kid at the weight class at 38 next year with Biskins. That's a big deal.
Now, for the listeners out there, we're going from 14 down to 13 weight classes. And how does that go? If you guys can give us a quick overview as far as, is it just one weight being dropped, or are they condensing and switching up the weights as well?
Yeah, so all the weights most of the weights will be a little different. The bottom, I think up to 45, they will simply add a pound. So 106 becomes 107, 13, 14. No. Then 45, 52, and 60 stay the same. 170 becomes 171. And then they're combining 82 and 95 and becoming the old 189. So that's where the weight is dropping, is combining those two.
Okay.
220 is dropping to 215, and then heavyweight. So that's where the 13 weight classes are. Basically, all this pretty much the same, except for 82 and 95 are combining.
Exactly.
Yep.
Awesome. All right, gentlemen, I want to thank you guys once again, both Bill McDonald and Kurt Becker. They're joining Andy and I for the show tonight with some good information and some questions. Andy, any last thoughts?
I'd like to do this before the season starts, maybe a little roundtable, get some other coaches from other teams on.
Yeah, that'd be great.
A preseason. I'd like that.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
That'd be fun to get a good scouting report ahead of time. I'd like that.
Oh, yes. You guys will be jotting down notes.
That's exactly it.
Recording the session. All right, guys. Thanks again for your time.
Yeah, appreciate
it. Thanks for having us. It was
in the fall.
Yeah. Have a great one.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye now.